before jumping into year 3 properly. I'll give some of my thoughts about the recent Injustice animated movie news. Green Arrow from Smallville will be voicing Superman, Captain Pike from Star Trek Discovery voices Batman, and for some reason Ra's al Ghul is in the movie in Lex Luthor's place. Probably. Also, Plastic Man, who didn't make an appearance until the end of year 4, is apparently also in the movie, which just makes me confused over if all 5 years have been stuffed and cut to fit into the movie format. Long Halloween Part 1 was about 90 minutes long, and if this Injustice animated movie is going to be close to that same length, then that just ends up reminding me of that Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works movie, which was 105 minutes long. Cut a lot of the original visual novel story out of it, and was only properly redeemed 4 years later when the Unlimited Blade Works was turned into a 26 episode long anime series. This is one more example why Injustice should rather be adapted as a series and not as a movie. Moving on to year 3 now. As I have brought up before, this is where Tom Taylor was forced to leave as the main writer, and Brian Buccellato took over. And in the annual issue, one of the 2 stories was written by Ray Fawkes. As I have done before, I'll go over year 3 with my commentary and analysis, with this video being divided into sections like with my Flashpoint video essay. Now let us begin. The third year of Injustice opens up where year 2 left off, in the aftermath of the war between the Green Lantern and the Sinestro Corps, as John Constantine arrives to a safe haven he had set up for his daughter Rose and her mother, now being destroyed by having a dead Green Lantern fall on it. Due to the safe house now being exposed to John's enemies, he is quick to sense one of them already watching over him and his daughter from somewhere, and after calming Rose down enough, he takes her to the Tower of Fate in order to have Dr. Fate and Zatanna help looking after her. In exchange for this protection, John pledges his alliance to Batman's side and along with Detective Chimp, shows him where he has taken Raven, a powerful demonic magic user on Superman's side, into captivity. By this point, Batman has also regained his mobility enough to be able to stand and walk, but John comments on this being mostly possible thanks to painkillers. The death of Rose's mother because of Superman's alliance with Sinestro is enough for Batman to take John into his insurgency, and later they have called all the allies they have to a meeting in the house of Jason Blood. The meeting and the recap of what they have been able to do so far, however, goes into the worst direction when Harvey Bullock gets overwhelmed by all the magic users and decides to leave the meeting. He is stopped almost in time by Detective Chimp, who reminds Bullock why he became a police officer in the first place and why he served under Commissioner Gordon, for the victims who they couldn't save. Bullock's attitude in being overwhelmed is somewhat understandable, as he is relatively grounded enough as a police lieutenant surrounded by magicians, half-demons and a talking monkey, and so must feel like he is in the wrong story and genre. This could be an in-story acknowledgement of how the different characters in the DC universe are now under the same roof, and most of them wouldn't usually be used in the same story like this. The genre of the series has been jumping from one to the other, with year 1 starting off as a superhero drama, year 2 was a science fiction revenge story, and now we are in the middle of a horror fantasy because of what happens next. Detective Chimp unfortunately reached out to Bullock too late, as he had already opened the door to leave, and in doing so broke the protective seal that Jason Blood had built around his house. The hostile forces around the house attack when trying to close the door, which leads to the deaths of Blood and Bullock, while Detective Chimp is left severely wounded. Witchboy Clarion sends Tickle, his animal familiar, outside to get a glimpse of the danger they are in, and it is revealed to be God's vengeful spirit itself, the Spectre. Batman's first course of action is to tell everyone to retreat to the basement and look for a way out, which John rightfully calls a bad idea when confronted by the spirit of vengeance, and goes even further in calling Batman useless with his still recovering back injury, only letting him stand in painkillers. This causes Batman to recreate the infamous one punch meme in punching John down with one punch, and decided to go out to confront the Spectre on his own, as a distraction for Zatanna to magically transport everyone elsewhere while he does so. In Batman's brief confrontation with the Spectre, the spirit of vengeance is presented somewhat to be behaving out of character in siding with Superman, who at the same time is shown to be allowing Sinestro to torture a captured GCPD officer who had taken part in storming the Hall of Justice in Year 2 for information. Even in the brief moment between realizing that Batman had diverted its attention away from the insurgents and Zatanna taking Batman and they go away to safety, the Spectre is not presented as the neutral party bringing God's vengeance to the guilty. In order to learn more, John takes Batman to meet Madame Xanadu, a fortune teller, in order to get a proper glimpse into the future to get a proper grasp at what they are dealing with. They need to wait for a while because Madame Xanadu is in the mourning over Jason Blood's death, revealing that the two had been lovers, and she blames his death on John, because they were on the same side opposing Superman, who has now the Spectre on his side. In between Xanadu's episodes of mourning and lashing out against John, he and Batman leave her alone and John tells Batman about his own reputation. John Constantine is known around the magical users of the DC universe to be something of a cursed man with the death following him and coming to everyone in his company. Jason Blood already died because he was on the same side with him, so John warns Batman how the same fate could fall on him if they remained working together, and tells Batman that he still has a chance to walk away from working with him. Batman responds by not being afraid and being willing to go forward with their mission no matter the risks. This moment between John and Batman is also used as character development to show what kind of man John Constantine is, and how he sees the cast of heroes that Batman belongs into. After she has calmed down enough, Madame Xanadu allows them access through her door and begins to read the cards to see the future, but in the middle is taken over by an unknown force. After John manages to exercise this force out of her, Madame Xanadu speaks the future she saw to Batman and John. Green will grow, hellfire will burn, a dead man will fall and a dead man will rise. Souls will be lost and traitors triumph. The Empress awakes, the Emperor sleeps, Advisor banished, and the Joker returns. Sometime later, by the time the Spectre has let his alliance be known to Superman, Raven's captivity is eased by one of the candles in the circle surrounding her falling over, which allows her to leave as an astral projection and informs Superman of her location before being pulled back. Superman arrives to an abandoned church in Gotham and learns of its magical projection after wounding his hand in trying to tear it open. Still in the possession of a Sinestro Corpse ring, Superman creates constructs to allow him access and finds Raven trapped inside a circle, rescuing her by simply shutting off the rest of the candles. But upon her release, a more magical trap is revealed as Raven had been moved while Superman was on his way. Also that Superman would let the Ragman get close enough to bind Superman into his rags. John makes his presence known to Superman at this point and introduces him to Ragman's powers, which involve absorbing the souls of sinners to be bind into Ragman's costume and work their way as penance by lending their strength for Ragman to use. Considering how Superman's list of victims includes Mogo, a formerly living planet, John remarks that Superman's penance should take long after the heat death of the universe when the last star has gone out. Before Superman is fully bound into Ragman's rags, he reaches out to his Justice League communicator and calls help from Shazam, who, in getting his powers from a magical origin as a child able to turn into an adult with powers, is immune to John's protective enhancements in the church and to Ragman's powers as an innocent child. Shazam arrives to save Superman from Ragman while also bringing Hal Jordan, Sinestro, and the Spectre along with him. And the Spectre, while speaking like an otaku protecting his senpai, turning his attention on Ragman. John is left alone to just watch and apologize to Rory Reagan as the Spectre tears Ragman's costume apart, and then does the same to Rory. For luring him into a trap, enraged Superman moves to execute John, but is stopped by Shazam and Sinestro, who remind him that they are not supposed to do that, and because John should be interrogated for what information he has about Batman's side. John comments very condescendingly about Superman manipulating an innocent like Shazam into following his cause. which makes Superman tell Zam he is the only one he trusts to transport John to the Hall of Justice. While on their way there, Boston Brand, also known as Deadman, shows up to possess Zam and drop John for Zatanna to catch and magically transport to safety. Deadman is then pulled out of Shazam's body and confronted as an invisible ghost by the Spectre. But Deadman does the same by demanding an explanation for his actions in siding with Superman and wants to talk to Spectre's human host, Jim Corrigan. When the Spectre reacts amused to that name, Deadman realizes to his shock that the Spectre is not tied to Jim Corrigan to balance his actions, but does not get the chance to learn who has observed the spirit of vengeance before being struck with a magical blade to force Deadman to move on from his ghostly state. With his remaining time left, Boston makes his way to Nanda Parbat to say goodbye to the goddess Ramakrishna and name who he wants to take over his duties as Deadman. This deceased person is none other than Dick Grayson, who in Boston's departure is asked to tell hi to his dad. In the Tower of Fate, John is chastised for going by himself to try to take Superman out, before they begin to talk about Madame Xanadu's Red Fortune about their future. As for the green growing, Batman and John visited the Swamp Thing, the avatar of the network of plant life on Earth, who had already sided with Superman, while the Souls Lost were in the retrospect referring to Ragman's death. With the Empress awakening, Detective Chimp believes this to refer to Wonder Woman, who has been in a coma since year 1, and which has lasted too long, even for a Darwin Award leveled coma. John confesses that he and Batman have had something to do with that, with more details about it being revealed in the annual issue. But then directs the conversation to that the same trick could be used on Superman as the Emperor sleeps, if they manage to get close enough. Dr. Fate at this point reveals that the Phantom Stranger is meeting with the Spectre, which should be used as their chance to put Superman into sleep. Knowing they might not get another chance, John asks Batman who he is willing to sacrifice for the suicide mission, to which Batman volunteers himself with John's approval. Phantom Stranger meets up with Spectre and transfers them to walk on the rings of Saturn. Spectre, however, grows tired of this charade and calls out Stranger's bluff in revealing his new host and deeming the Stranger unfit to judge him with his past, by calling the Stranger with his true name. And this is the first time I want to talk about the artwork in the Injustice comic book series, because the artist got switched out in the middle of the scene, and for some confusing what the fuck reason, Phantom Stranger's appearance is changed along with it. Going from a traveler's cloak around his shoulders with a necklace to a trench coat with a tie. That your secret is safe with me type from year 2 I can understand, as this was a weekly series and so needed to be done in a rush. But did no one inform the artists working on this series on who this character is and what he is supposed to look like? This is why comic books should have editors keeping the writers and artists in check. The Spectre does something to Phantom Stranger which causes him to not appear in the series anymore, and meanwhile in the Hall of Justice, hellfire burns as Demon Etrigan attacks Superman, Hal, and Sinestro. As a demon from hell, Etrigan is not affected by fear, which makes Hal and Sinestro unable to use their rings on him, so Superman focuses on the demon instead, which is all according to the plan. Having gotten close enough to Superman, Etrigan returns to Hell and switches places with Batman, who throws the magical dust on Superman's face, sending him to dream of a life he could have had. Which is exactly what Tom Taylor spent his last 2 issues on before handing the writing duties to Brian Buccalado. Superman dreams of the life he could have had if Lois never died, as she woke up again after Superman came back to his senses from Scarecrow's fear toxin. After that, Batman decided to dismiss the American court system, which after this stunt would have definitely given the Joker the death sentence, and killed the Joker himself. After which he surrendered to the police and was put into jail for it. So, Lois was allowed to give birth in peace, and Superman's daughter grew up to become that version of Supergirl that Andy Muschietti cast Sasha Calle to play in his Flashpoint movie. But it was only just a dream. As eventually, Superman had to wake up in Brian Boccolado's half of year 3. Brian Boccolado's half of year 3 opens with Wonder Woman waking up from her Darwin Award-winning coma, with her final dream in it being a PG fantasy of her feelings towards Superman, thanks to the godly powers of Ares and Hera, which will be a subject to be explored more in year 4. Accompanied by Ares, Wonder Woman returns to the Hall of Justice to find Hal now a Yellow Lantern, and Superman comatose wearing a Yellow Lantern with Sinestro standing next to him. This leads to a brief but pointless fight between Wonder Woman and Sinestro, during which Ares does what he did with Wonder Woman to wake Superman from his dream and break up their fight. Wonder Woman passive-aggressively demands Superman to take off his Sinestro Corpse ring, because intimidation and instilling fear is not what their side is about. Ai jaa vai? Ja mitäs helvettiä se australaisen sankarin rampauttaminen Black Adamin itsemurhayllytys ja niille kolmannen maailman valtionraiden asestaminen sitten oli? Entäs se toi muuten uhkaus marssilaisen ihmismetsästä, joka luulit Batmaniksi? Vittu oikeesti Diana, sinä itse oot lähdennyt saanut teräsmiehen rauhasanomaa pakottamalla muuta siihen. Unohditko sä mukaan kaiken sen, kun olit koomassa? Mahtoi olla valitseva muistinmenetys, jos olet vieläkin teräsmiehen puolella, etkä muista miten olet itse sitä kannattanut. Ei Tom Taylor ehkä aloitti ihmeläiskirjoittamisen Injusticeissa päin vittua, mutta Brian Boccolado ei voi näin vaan teeskennellä, että sitä ei tapahtunut. Yrittäisi edes saada Dianan näkemään, mitä väärää teräsmies on tekemässä, ja miksi Batman on niitä vastaan, mutta ei. Okay, so after taking the ring off, Superman has a private discussion with her about what all has changed since Captain Atom sent her to a coma, and his own magical coma dream of Lois alive with the family they could have had if none of what the Joker did came to be.
And what about Chi-Chi? And Goten? Oh, surely you can guess that much, Goku. After I struck you down in front of your wife and child, it was time to finish the cleansing. You'll pay for that!
Like with Goku after learning that Zamasu killed Chi-Chi and Goten after switching bodies with his future self, Superman is even angrier than he was before, as he has now seen what he had been denied of and lost that life for a second time. Then conveniently after telling that to Diana, the Spectre arrives to tell him that he has managed to locate the Flash, Robin and Cyborg's location in being held captive in the Tower of Fate. After learning that Batman is hiding there, Superman demands that Spectre takes him, Diana, Hal, Sinestro, Shazam and Ares there immediately. Prior to their arrival to the Tower of Fate, Batman comments that even when Superman is down, his absence in the superhero community hurts everyone to John, which is shown when he tries to address the Flash, Cyborg, Raven and Robin, who were on Superman's side and won't just flip and submit to Batman's side just because Superman is defeated. It is then shown when they are in the middle of planning what to do next to undo Superman's actions, when Dr. Fate gives Batman and John a poorly attempt at comedy-style last-second warning about Superman's force coming, and already being there. And then, now without any illusions to the passage of time or being given any time skips like in year 2, the following issues of Injustice Year 3 from here to its last issue is just what I could estimate to be couple of hours, like 2 or 4 hours. I don't even know if the third year has gone for a month or 2 in the in-story pacing. Or actually, considering how we are now moving into a series of fight sequences, maybe the illusion of the passage of time is how Batman has now recovered enough from his back injury to be fit for combat. Anyway, in what I'm going to call Hour 1, Superman confronts Batman about the events that led them to this point from Captain Atom's attempt on his life, before punching him back, and in recovering from that thanks to his magic and his 5-Unit-3R pill, Batman tells his local allies, Batwoman, Huntress Harley, Renee Montoya and Catwoman to take their 5-Unit-3R pills to level the playing field, while Dr. Fate, John, Detective Chimp and Clarion just use magic to do what they need to do. Zatanna's absence is explained as babysitting duties with John's daughter. Dr. Fate then levels the playing field even more by turning the Tower of Fate into a series of labyrinthian staircases to confuse the enemy, and then the two sides engage in combat. Batman vs Superman, Catwoman vs Sinestro, Batwoman vs Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn vs Shazam. John sees that this nonsense is not going to get them anywhere and elects them to do a tactical retreat, which Batman approves in telling John and Clarion to evacuate the prisoners while his side keeps Superman's side busy. John comments that he would have another plan, but that would have required Clarion's help, who just then and there gets killed by Sinestro shooting the witch boy in the back. While Superman and Wonder Woman are conveniently busy giving Sinestro a hypocritical lecture on what he did wrong, hypocritical because stabbing Captain Atom to the neck from behind is how Wonder Woman ended up in her Darwin Award-winning coma in the first place. Batman tells John to do whatever he planned to do if it gets them a better chance at retreating. John does as he is told, and ends up summoning the Demon Lord Trigon to the Tower of Fate. Hellfire begins to burn around Trigon as he appears and confronts Superman for kidnapping his daughter Raven, which John had planned as a ruse by having Etrigan spread rumors in Hell about Superman having kidnapped Raven instead of himself as a favor to Batman's side. Batman and John regroup with the Birds of Prey and inform them that while Trigon is doing them a favor on focusing his attacks on Superman's side, that can easily change if the Demon Lord learns that their side actually has his daughter in captivity, meaning that they need to leave now. And seeing how easily Ares gets brushed aside by Trigon, they believe him. Catwoman boss Harley, who had mistaken Trigon for a movie reference, along with everyone to the magical portal Dr. Fate and Detective Chimp have conjured up, and walk through to their next base. Dr. Fate leaves to move the prisoners on his own, but Detective Chimp reveals that his time is up now that Clarion, who had earlier conjured him back to life, is dead after Spectre's first attack. And without the Necromancer, Detective Chimp is already fading away as Batman and Harley stay behind just for the few seconds he has left. And just as Bobo is gone, the new Deadman, aka Dick Grayson's ghost, appears to Batman to tell him about how he had discovered Spectre's human host locked away in Arkham in a Jokerized state, but also that Madame Xanadu's prophecy about the Joker's return was not referring to the deceased Clown Prince of Crime, but instead to a much more powerful and dangerous magical entity on Superman's side. This being makes his appearance at the cliffhanger of issue 18 in saving Superman and Wonder Woman from Trigon's violent pounding, and as the otaku obsessed with protecting his senpai is revealed to be Mr. Mxyzptlk. The fifth-dimensional imp jovially explains his loyalty to Superman's cause being due to the Man of Steel being his favorite playmate, and as a fifth-dimensional imp, Mxyzptlk is powerful enough to observe the god's spirit of vengeance in the Spectre, and to be on the same level to go one-on-one against Trigon. However, as the art suggests here, taking over the mantle of the Spectre may have corrupted Mxyzptlk as his appearance changes into more sinister outlook while fighting Trigon, and only in recognizing that Superman is vulnerable to their magical collateral damage does Mxyzptlk move them all from the Tower of Fate to the forest area between the House of Mystery and House of Secrets, which is where Batman's side had retreated into. And while Mxyzptlk carries on his fight against Trigon, Batman along with his allies takes advantage over Superman's side being weakened from their transport there. And then Swamp Thing shows up to support Superman's side, which he earlier said he was on. The fight sequence in Hour 2 continues as Batman's side frees themselves from Swamp Thing's controlled vines, thanks to the 5U93 R-pills granted strength. Batman vs Superman, Catwoman vs Wonder Woman, Harley vs Shazam, Batwoman vs Sinestro, Renee Montoya vs Hal Jordan, Huntress vs Ares. In the middle of those matchups, Dick Grayson's ghost flies out to bring Poison Ivy to level the playing field against the Swamp Thing, and returns at a key moment when Shazam has punched Harley away and moved to assist Superman in beating Batman. Grayson possesses Shazam, using his power to push Superman and Wonder Woman away from Batman, and then transforms back into Billy Batson to give Batman the goodbye he couldn't give to him when he died, thanking him for raising him to be the hero he was as Robin and Nightwing, and asking him not to turn his back on Damian as his death was an accident, before Dick tells his dad he loves him. While this heartwarming moment is taking place, Wonder Woman straight up forwardly and instinctively, without any initial remorse, isn't holding back her strength, kills Huntress and then pretends to be shocked. What was the thought process for this action? For both Diana and for the writer Brian Boccalado, look at these panels! Batwoman and Huntress were two teaming on Wonder Woman. Huntress straight up calls their side opposing Superman's tyranny, and Wonder Woman responds by declaring to be on the right side of history as she throws her lasso around Huntress's neck and pulls it back in, breaking it. Out of killing Helena, what else did Diana think was going to happen? Also, remember this, because it's going to have a really poorly written follow-up in year 4 that I'm going to rant about when I make that video. Okay, then Trigon decides to use his overdrive move in his fight against Mxyzptlk, and Hellfire spreads to the forest area they are all in. The magical aura surrounding the House of Mystery and House of Secrets is disturbed by the Hellfire, and I don't know how to describe it other than by bringing up the Photoshop effect, and that this mayhem forces the two sides to a temporary truce. Seeing the calamity outside, John and Dr. Fate release the Flash from his captivity to move everyone trapped in the Hellfire to safety. Thanks to the two insides of the house, Batman's side are separated from Superman's side to the House of Mystery and Superman's side to the House of Secrets. All except for Swamp Thing, who gets consumed by the Hellfire and dragged into hell. But don't worry, he will be released from there by the events of the second video game. Somehow. Hour 3, aka issues 23 and half of the issue 24, consists how the two sides are holding on inside the two houses while Mxyzptlk and Trigon battle outside with the Hellfire causing calamity that is eventually going to destroy their safe havens. John and Dr. Fate devise a plan that Dick Grayson's ghost relays to Superman's side in House of Secrets, which ends up being Dr. Fate harnessing the magical lightning bolt of Shazam, as Billy Batson calls it like a spirit bomb, and shooting it at Mxyzptlk and Trigon like a In the middle, Batman also catches John saying something suspicious, and Raven awakens to try reach out to her father before he, Mxyzptlk and Dr. Fate disappear as the calamity calms down and knocks everyone unconscious. Just like with Swamp Thing, Dr. Fate will be back by the events of the second video game, and acts like none of this happened. Zatanna then worked her magic off-screen by moving Batman and his allies to a remote bunker under the Pacific lead mines of northwest Alaska. Superman's side goes back to Hall of Justice after having managed to reclaim those they lost at the end of year 2, and Superman gives an apology-themed speech to them about how he has been too obsessed in hunting Batman down and lost the sight of what their mission in enforcing world peace is. After that, he flies up to the orbit and friend-zones Wonder Woman when she joins him there. The third year of Injustice then ends with Batman confronting John as he is about to leave with his daughter Rose. Batman has by now deduced that John joined his side for the sole purpose of getting rid of Trigon, to whom John had sold a piece of his soul in the past, and knew that the Demon Lord would come for Rose as collateral. Revenge on Superman for causing her safe haven to be exposed and mother to die was just a convenient and justifiable excuse to join Batman's side for protection, and eventually play the long game in getting Trigon off his back. Now that that is done, John leaves with his daughter to what he calls a magical relocation program, while leaving Batman with these words of wisdom: open to other possibilities if you want to win this bloody war, and next time you see Superman, do me a favor and kick him in the bollocks. What a dragged and rushed ending for year 3. If you can even call it a year. I find it very difficult to call what transpired during it to have taken place during an entire year. First, let's go over with Tom Taylor's half. We saw John finding his daughter and taking her to the Tower of Fate, then showing Raven to Batman and Detective Chimp, then how the Spectre attacked them in Jason Blood's house, then before John takes Batman to meet Madame Xanadu, we are shown how the Spectre formally joins Superman's side. Then John and Ragman attempt to contain Superman into Ragman's rags, and John's escape costing Deadman his existence. Sometime after that, Batman and John try and fail to reach out to the Swamp Thing, who has chosen Team Superman instead. Then they make a plan to make Superman go to sleep and pull it off. That is 7 separate instances that should have maybe a day or more time between them at the very least. It would suggest that the passage of time that was spent over Tom Taylor's half of year 3 took place in just 2 weeks, or at the very least it happened in less time than just a month. Followed up by Brian Bacalado's half, which opens with Wonder Woman waking up from her Darwin Award-winning coma, and then arriving to find Superman in the same coma she was on. After fighting a purposeless fight against Sinestro, Superman is awakened by Ares, and then they go to have the extended fight sequences that lead to Mr. Mxyzptlk fighting Trigon, and causing the Hellfire calamity between the House of Mystery and House of Secrets. And then Dr. Fate and Shazam Kamehameha those two into the void. Add one more day after that to the final sequences in issue 24, and year 3 might as well be called year 2 DLC extra month. Or actually, with the annual issue, it might get upgraded to year 2 DLC extra 2 months. The first story in the annual issue takes place, according to the editor's note, hey, remember when Continuity had editors to help it make sense? Before John shows Batman where Raven is held in showing how she was put into captivity. Long story short, as soon as Batman was able to walk again, the first people he went to try to recruit into his side were Dr. Occult and Rose Psychic. I had no idea who these two were before I read this issue. Who agreed to help Batman in neutralizing Raven and in keeping Wonder Woman in her coma. Dr. Occult and Rose Psychic go on a scavenger hunt to collect artifacts to switch until they have the right one to put Raven down. John Constantine tags along during it. When they eventually find Raven and confront her, Dr. Occult ends up getting killed due to Raven being too powerful, but John manages to use Dr. Occult's death as a distraction and uses the artifact to neutralize Raven. However, due to Dr. Occult's death, Rose Psychic is dying because her life was probably tied to Dr. Occult's or something like that. I tried to Google what this was about, and it seems to have been done just for this story. John then reminds Rose about Wonder Woman's situation and how Themyscira is off limits to men. Brian Bacalado will ignore this in year 4. She goes to the extend Wonder Woman's Darwin Award-winning coma, while John finishes putting Raven as he showed her to Batman in the beginning of year 3. And then John sabotages Rose's escape from Themyscira by sending her to die alone somewhere in the Pacific, so he can take the credit over what Dr. Occult and Rose Psychic did, so he can join Batman's side as a trusted ally, so he can eventually take out Trigon to protect his daughter. Like I brought up, this story extends year 3 maybe a week or a month because of the scavenger hunt, and without any proper time skips like in year 2, year 3 lasts maybe about 2 months worth of time. Of course, the second story in the annual issue could have extended a little longer maybe, if it tried to extend the ending sequence of issue 24, or by bridging the ending of year 3 with the beginning of year 4, but nay. Instead, the second story is used to explain what happened to the Teen Titans and why Raven and Cyborg joined Superman's side. Beast Boy and Bart Allen's Kid Flash were both in Metropolis when it blew up and they died. Beast Boy in Superboy Connor Kent's arms, and Kid Flash by running into the direction of the explosion seconds before it. First of all, Bart Allen is Barry Allen's grandson from the future. Yeah, comics, am I right? Who came back in time to get to know his grandfather better. Like, imagine going back in time to know your grandparents in Hiroshima or Nagasaki when the bombs fell down. Then there is how Superman ignores Superboy trying to talk to him. To those of you who don't know, Connor is a clone created from Superman and Lex Luthor's DNA, and his relationship with Superman is basically that of an older and younger sibling. I have younger siblings, so I can speak as an older brother that I can understand how Superman might have a hard time in responding back to Connor, but I cannot understand how he would after this go to throw away his Clark Kent identity by revealing it to the world while also making his declaration of global ceasefire without talking about it with his parents and little brother. This is why I call Superman a man-child in the Year 1 video. But Brian Bacalado's writing with this retcon in addressing the Teen Titans fate mostly just ends up breaking the natural progression of Superman's descent into tyranny by making him act like at the end of Year 3 Superman during the events of Year 1. I can assume that Brian Bacalado's hands must have been tied with making some kind of explanation in what happened to the Teen Titans, so he seemingly ended up writing Superman out of character too early, and in doing so, made Superboy see that Superman is not his big brother anymore, which leads to the conclusion where Superboy goes to the Fortress of Solitude to look for the Phantom Zone projector to use it on Superman. Superman catches him in the act, the Teen Titans support Superboy in standing up to him, and then Superman punches Superboy with such strength that it causes a broken sternum and one of Connor's ribs puncturing his heart. Instead of treating Connor's wounds with alien technology not available in the Fortress of Solitude for some reason, Superman decides to put him into the Phantom Zone as a form of life support with Starfire, Wonder Girl and Red Robin going along with him to keep him company. And all of this is supposed to take place before the United States government sent Mirror Master to kidnap Ma and Pa Kent, which then united the Justice League along with Raven and Cyborg to Superman's cause. At no point did Rachel or Victor decide to ask or look into where Connor, Cass, Cory or Tim had disappeared to when the Titans Tower would have had surveillance footage of them still alive. See this clip from the first game?
My boss is being generous. I wouldn't be. Most of the Titans died in Metropolis 5 years ago.
Only ones who died in Metropolis were Beast Boy and Kid Flash, while both Cyborg and Raven should have been aware of Starfire, Superboy, Wonder Girl and Red Robin also being alive with them. All this story ended up doing was create a retcon that made Superman's understandable descent into tyranny go for the extreme briefly, before it calmed down to what we saw of him at this point in Year 1. In conclusion, the third year of Injustice is where the momentum of the series' popularity started to slow down, and switching the writers in the middle of it did not do any favors to it. Looking at how it began and where it led to, it would be a fair assessment that Taylor and Bacalado did have some form of discussion on where Taylor's half was supposed to go for Bacalado's half to be completed. The revelation of the Spectre being used by Mxyzptlk, for example, ended up making sense when you look back onto the dialogue used by the Spectre when confronting Batman, and generally speaking highly on Superman's importance to him. With Madame Xanadu's prophecy about the Joker's return being a clever smokescreen to hide Mxyzptlk's involvement leading to his revelation. But then there is the dragged and rushed pacing in Bacalado's half that leaves many things unfulfilling, such as how Bacalado wrote certain characters out of the story. Clarion, for example, was the first underused casualty whose death only ended up reminding how he was there, and how his only contribution was keeping Detective Chimp around for a little longer. I already went over how Huntress's death was both abrupt and questionable, and I'm going to rant more about it in the next video, but then there is also the writer forgot issue when it comes to the Spectre. After Mxyzptlk is revealed to have observed the spirit of vengeance, and Dick Grayson's ghost reveals that he had found the Spectre's human host locked in Arkham, both the Spectre and Jim Corrigan are essentially forgotten and not mentioned again after everything has been said and done. They make no further appearances in the future. There is no mention of Jim Corrigan being released from Arkham, for example. And considering how Year 4 is about gods interfering with Superman's cause, The fact that the presence does not acknowledge in any way how Hanen vengeful spirit has been observed by someone else just ends up making Brian Boccalado look like a lazier and poorer writer than Tom Taylor. In the Year 1 video, I said that there are some stupid but still important character building moments worth acknowledging when it comes to the 5-year story of Injustice. Brian Boccalado's half of Year 3 is an example of that, but it is not by any means bad, although it could be worse. It is Year 4 where he was given full reign to tell that story, where we actually got something that might as well be considered a waste of time. Until we see again in Year 4 of Injustice, thank you for watching, like the video, comment your thoughts down below, share the video to those who deem interested on it or know about Injustice in general, and subscribe for what other videos I'll be doing next. And may your heart be your guiding key.